Now, on part two of this podcast with one of the world's greatest songwriters, Albert Hammond, we move from Gibraltar to London, where he works with Mike Hazelwood and also Roger Cook, and had his first hits, which led him to work with John Paul Jones and Beatles producer George Martin.
And then I realized that as we went to parties and sang, that all these girls came around, and so I said, so it was all experience to experience, as things came up, And then I formed this band called the Diamond Boys, and we played in Gibraltar, and then we got a contract to play in Morocco, first in Sidi Slimane and then in Casablanca. And I was 16 or something, and the others were 15, and so we went over there and we did all this, and then we came back to Gibraltar. We heard of a festival in Madrid in Spain, and so by then we got this manager from Gibraltar. I mean, he didn't know what a manager was, but he kind of took care of us, because he was older. And so we went to Madrid, and we went to the place and said, we want to enter this competition. And they said, well, you can enter, but the posters are done, so your name can't go on the poster, but you can enter, So we did, and it was like a month where the weekends, groups from everywhere came to compete, and they were eliminated. And we got to the final, and then we won. And so, to our surprise, and so we got a record deal with RCA in Spain, and so the Diamond Boys made their first record, and then it didn't last very long, 9 months, a year, and they just wanted to keep playing around there, and I wanted to go further. I kept the guy that I'd first taught, Richard Cartwright, the guy I'd first taught how to play some chords, and we did Everly songs and stuff, and we carried on. We went to England, and we made a record in England. In fact, we made like 3 records, and we did Thank You Lucky Stars and some other TV shows, with Kathy Kirby and the Hollies and Jerry and the Pacemakers, and we thought, oh, we made it.
I mean, a lot of people I've talked to talk about an event, and it doesn't have to be very traumatic, but an event in their childhood or a relationship in their childhood, sometimes with their parents, that is a sort of kickoff for the drive that they have in life. If I think of myself, I ended up being a presenter on MTV, and my father didn't have anything to do with me. And I think in this therapeutic way, I've had a lot of therapy with that, I looked for love elsewhere. So being on TV was an attempt of the compensation of love I didn't get from my father. And I just wondered if you've, because I know that you're quite spiritual, and I know that you do think about these things, whether you've ever analyzed your childhood and said, oh yeah, that was one of the key events in my life.
Well, my father's brothers, they didn't want me to do what I was doing, In fact, they got me a job as a telecommunication mechanic, when I was about 15. And I worked, that means I worked for the telephone. So the first thing they asked me to do was to take apart a telephone and put it together. And when I did it, there were so many pieces left over that they realized I wasn't going to be very good. So anyways, I mean, I had love within, I think later on in my life, I needed more reassurance. I became more insecure. When I was young, I was so sure of everything. Maybe it was because I was spiritual, because I wasn't religious, but I was spiritual. I believed in compassion. I believed in being kind. I believed that we should love each other more than we actually do, and be there for each other and all those things.
How exciting was London? Because there's this brilliant YouTube clip that I saw this morning, and it's the song A Way of Life, Family Dogg. And
Yes.
it's from 1969, and it features a very handsome young man on guitar in that clip. And the song is written by Greenaway and Cook, who, of course, were the major songwriters of the day. And
Major,
anyone who knows Blue Mink and
yeah,
bands like that will know them.
yeah.
Something got a hold of my heart, I think they wrote, didn't they? They wrote
That's
some
right. Yeah, yeah.
amazing tracks.
You've got your
Um,
troubles, I got mine,
yeah. So how exciting was that period? And what do you feel you were able to glean from songwriters who were successful at that period before your later success came in? What did you glean from them?
Well, I'd learned actually a little bit before about songwriting because I had met Mike Hazelwood before the Family Dogg, um, and before I'd met Cook and Greenaway, and it was during the time that I worked at the Grosvenor House Hotel that I met Mike Hazelwood, and he would come to the hotel because we got free meals because I worked there, and we would write songs after we'd eaten something. We'd write songs, and then I'd go back to work, and he would go on. So I also went to see, and that's where I met Mike originally. Went to see Shaftesbury Music. The guy there was Jeffrey Everett, and they were part of Radio Luxembourg. And so I met Mike there, and because Jeffrey Everett thought Mike and I would make a good, songwriting team. And the first hit we had was Little Arrows by Lee P. Lee, but the second one was Make Me an Island by Joe Dolan. And then we wrote more songs for Joe Dolan. In fact, we had, I think, 3 or 4 hits with Joe, like You're Such a Good Looking Woman and Teresa. And so by the time, Mike and I were successful, we were more like we could meet the successful songwriters because we were now successful. And so I got together with Roger Cook, and I wrote Good Morning Freedom and Freedom Come, Freedom Go. And then with Mike, we wrote a children's television show that starred Freddie and the Dreamers, and the hit from that was a song called Gimme That Ding. I don't know if
I
you
remember
remember.
that. Yeah, give me that ding, give me that ding.
Exactly.
God,
Yeah.
it's
and we were very happy, and then we formed the Family Dogg with Steve Rowland, who I had met in Spain, because he was an actor who wanted to be a singer, and he tried it in Spain. And so when I met Steve in London, we both loved dogs. So we thought we'd form a group like the Fifth Dimension, kind of, of 3 guys and 2 girls, and we were thinking of names, and we both had Tibetan Terriers. So we thought, call it the Family Dogg with a double G.
And London must have been terribly exciting at that stage, because I think the creative bubble of people who were creating music, and the bands and the session musicians and the writers, it was quite small, but they were all together. Can you tell me about how that sort of people fed off each other and how they met?
It was incredible. I mean, I met with Les Reed and Barry Mason. I met with the guy who produced the Beatles. So you meet all these people, then you have this group, and then suddenly you're going to make a record, and you've got Jimmy Page on guitar, and you've got John Paul Jones arranging and playing the bass. So without realizing, you were mingling with a group called Led Zeppelin. So, and it didn't matter, we were all kind of friendly, and just because they were Led Zeppelin didn't mean they couldn't play on a session, you know.
So was someone like George Martin, which was who we're trying to
George
remember.
Martin,
Yeah,
that's
was
it.
someone like George Martin someone who was also open to,
Totally,
oh,
totally,
wow.
totally. I mean, unbelievable, you know. The whole of Air London, you know, because they became four producers, you know, George Martin, Peter Sullivan, John Burgess, and the guy who produced the Hollies. Again, names, you know. Um, it's so difficult when you've lived such an immense life, you know, and met so many people. But yes, the beauty, I think, of the times there was that no, you know, people's egos were not that huge, you know. We really, at least I know I really was happy when somebody was successful, when a friend of mine was successful, you know, it made me happy. And it also told me, you can do the same, you know. So it wasn't like, why should he have that and not me? You know, it was very different. So those times for me were like the times in Gibraltar. I mean, there was love and compassion, and people got together and helped each other, you know. And then when we went to Los Angeles in 1970, I found the same kind of thing in the music business.
And watch out for part 3, where Albert Hammond goes to America and he achieves success for his solo work.